it is going to be here for a while. And so then we look at our prompt. There was a prompt there for you to look at. It was 6th grade science. If you looked at that prompt, we rated that as an average of a 2.9. Some of us giving it lower scores, some of us on the higher end, but we kind of landed near the middle a little bit, around 2.9. So let's go back and jump in. And so just as a reminder, when we talk about the use of AI and really building AI literacy, it's not simply about pulling up a tool and being able to put in a prompt. That's a piece of it, and that's a large, like we're going to focus on that piece a little bit today. But there's a human aspect in all of this. You know, we have to know how to use it effectively as adults. If we ever want students to learn how to do that, we need to learn how to do that so we can model that in our use, and not just while we're at work, right? In our personal lives too, we have to be able to use it effectively and responsibly. And there's a human element of that. Again, using a tool is great, but being able to evaluate the output, understand if there's a hallucination or unfactual information there. So there's a big human aspect to the use of AI, and I think that oftentimes gets a little lost because we talk about machine learning and algorithms. But while AI can do a lot of great things, it is not the end all be all. And so when we think through the professional lens, especially as an educator, AI can help us do a whole lot. From an educational lens, it can help us create drafts of lessons or activities. It can summarize emails for us. However, just like I said a few minutes ago, it can't guarantee the accuracy of that. Hallucinations are a very real thing. How many of you have ever put something into AI and it generated an image that had like 5, like multiple heads or 7 fingers, or it just came out with like really weird information that wasn't factual? Has anybody ever experienced that in using either ChatGPT or Gemini or any of those platforms? Because if you have, that's a hallucination, right? And so that's, again, that human aspect of using generative AI. When I think about, if I think about using it in the classroom to differentiate, it can absolutely translate or adapt text levels. It can do that. Like it can level up or level down, change the Lexile level for text. What it can't do is replicate human insights. It's going to lack the empathy or the nuance to do that. One of the things I know a lot of teachers have been leaning into when it comes to AI is the fact that it can provide some feedback. That's a really time-intensive thing when you're trying to give feedback on student work. And so AI can help with that. However, AI doesn't know your students. And so it can't give holistic feedback or contextualized feedback because it doesn't know the nuances of your classroom. And then it can absolutely, AI can be a brainstorm partner and help make life a little easier in some ways, but it can't replace you. You are the human in that classroom. You are the ones building relationships with students. You know them best. And so while it can be a great help, it is, again, not the end all be all.
We had someone in the chat, Paul said that he uses it to help simplify explanations and create graphic organizers. And those are all wonderful uses for using AI. He uses both ChatGPT and Copilot.
Nice. Absolutely. We used it just the other day in planning a professional development. We took a lesson plan a teacher had created, and she was struggling to think about how she universally designed something. And so we stuck it in there and it gave some really great feedback. I mean, it really can be an awesome tool. We just have to remember that human element into all the things that we do. So thank you for sharing that, Paul. One of the things I think, maybe not us as adults, we realize the difference, but oftentimes I think this is a piece that students struggle with a little bit. It's the fact that any generative platform, whether you're talking about ChatGPT or Gemini, Copilot, Claude, any of those, they are not Google. It is not a search engine. And while it may pull from the same data sets, absolutely, how you interact with them and the output that you get from them is very, very different. And so even though now, here's my caveat to that, now a lot of our browsers, if you've been in Google Chrome, now has an AI mode. So maybe that this won't be true in the future, but right now there's still a little bit of a differentiation. And so when I think about how I interact with Google versus how I interact with ChatGPT or Gemini, and what I ask those different platforms to do looks differently. And so what I put into a search engine, I might put in, I need a lesson plan for inference for 4th grade. And that's going to search the World Wide Web, and it's going to bring up lots of different websites that have 4th grade lesson plans on them. However, if I'm prompting AI to create a new lesson plan, I could put something in like create a lesson plan to teach 4th grade reading students about how to make an inference. And that's okay, but that's not the best prompt out there. And so when we think about prompting, the one on the far right, it's a lot to read. It looks very detailed. And so I want you to take a minute and to think about what makes that an effective prompt. Why would you want all that information? And so I want us to take about a minute. And then in the chat, I would love for you to drop your ideas. What makes the prompt on the right-hand side of the screen effective? And you can just throw that in the chat. Sweet. So Karen says details, the use of things like timers, timestamps, duration of activities, the standard. Absolutely. It gives more specificity. So it takes out some of the guesswork, super specific. It gives details. Absolutely. The North Carolina standard helps. Absolutely. If we want it to be standard aligned, agreed. Naming of specific components of the lesson plans, some of the things that have come through so far.
Differentiated
Detail.
levels for student
Absolutely.
ability, using AI to create notebooks for vocabulary activities that students are not just copying notes.
Absolutely. And so one of the things when I started diving into AI and how to begin to use it and use it effectively, is I was introduced to a framework for developing prompts. How many of you, anybody in the chat, you can either do a thumbs up, a thumbs down, or a yes, no. How many of you have seen this framework for developing a prompt before? Has anybody seen that? You can either do a thumbs up, thumbs down with the responses, or a yes, no in the chat. Anybody seen that before? Beautiful. So some yeses, some nos. Well, good. So this was a framework that was shared during some of the professional development that we attended with NCDPI, and it is a way to think about how you develop prompts. I love a good acronym. Like the only way I still remember the planets is my very effective mother. Like I love a good acronym to help me remember things. And so CRAFT is a framework for helping you to develop prompts. And so thinking about the context, and a lot of you called this out in the chat, those specific details that are embedded throughout the prompt. so that it takes the guesswork out, just like some of you said. The role, you're assigning a role. So you saw in there, I'm an expert fourth grade teacher, assigning it a role, because sometimes what I do in the classroom for students might look different versus what I want to do if I'm working with teachers in a PLT. The audience, so specific details about the audience. And we'll talk about this a little bit again in just a moment, but who are your students, right? Or who is this for? If I'm crafting or developing a prompt for adults, I want to differentiate that from something that I'm creating for a student. What's the format that I'm looking for? Is it a lesson plan? Is it an activity? Is it a one pager with bulleted points? What does that format need to be? And then task tone. So specify desired tone. This one comes in real handy when I think about email revisions. That I lean into AI really hard for email revisions and ensuring there is a positive warm tone or there's no negative tone in an email. And so craft is a great way to think about, and I even do this now when I'm going through, have I told it what I want it to create? Who is this for? What's my role in this? And so I want to test you just a little bit. And so thinking about, I'm going to put another prompt up. If you have the prompt in front of you, and this is similar to one you saw earlier in your warm-up, I want you to take a minute and to think about this prompt and to think about craft. And is it an effective prompt? Is it an ineffective prompt? Are there problems with this prompt that you can see? And so I want to give us about, let's do another minute on the timer, and then just throw your answers in the chat. Thinking through what we shared about crafts. What do we think about this prompt? Mm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
So some of you are calling out the fact that one of the problems, and as educators, I think we're a little bit hyper aware of this, but names, right?
Mm-hmm.
Too much personal information, doesn't address tone. It calls out the standard, but there's no attached documentation or things like we don't know that happened. Way too specific and personal. Take out the names. There are some really good parts of this. So if you think about craft, there are some good parts. And so when I think about this, like I gave it some context. Like I said, like I want it to be hands-on and inquiry-based, accessible materials, UDL. I gave it context. I also gave it the role that I am playing. But a lot of you already called this out. It is a little problematic in that it has what we call PII. And so while it has a lot of the different pieces and parts of the crafting framework, it just gives a little too much. And so when we talk about PII, and that's an acronym you'll hear a lot in the, especially with AI, but just in the digital world in general, that's personally identifiable information. And so all that is information that when you start to put puzzle pieces together, you can identify and single out who that individual is. We used to live by the rule of three. But now in one of the sessions that we were in with DPI, they said no more than 2 pieces of information. And so if I go back to the prompt that I just have, I have a lot of student names here. I know those students are in 6th grade. I know they go to Meadowview Middle School. I also have some other pieces of information that could be used as well to identify that student. And so we don't want to put those types of pieces into any AI platform. So if I don't want to put students' names there, like if this isn't what I want to do, how could I, like, what's something that I could do instead? If I'm not putting names or things like that, how could I still get the results I want without having that information there? Some students, you could do letters or numbers in that scenario. Absolutely. Absolutely. So those are all great. Those are great. You could say students, abbreviations. I could say I have 1 student who is this or 2 students who are that. Absolutely. And so all that data is stored, right? And so you don't want it to, and they use those data sets to help train the AI model. And so we don't want to put that information out into the ether, right?
Dr. Brown, did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, so once you put your information in there, yeah, it is. Gemini is one of the few that in the educational instance, they don't use that information that you're putting in there to train their, but like Chat, Claude, some of these, they're going to hold and store whatever you put in there. And then now your information is out in the ether, and who knows who could get a hold of it or what that could do. We know there's some, I wish I was smart enough to figure out how to do some of those things, but we know we have some really smart people out there that know how to hack in and get all kinds of information. So when we think about craft and we think about ensuring that our prompt, our input is going to give us the output the output that we need, we still need to be very mindful of the information we're putting in there. Again, being mindful of PII, that personally identifiable information, and that's an acronym you're going to hear over and over as we continue to use AI. And so I want us, in just a moment, I told you I'm not talking the whole time, and we're like 27 minutes in, and you're like, Ashley, you've talked a lot. I'm going to stop. I do want to share a resource with you and give you time to explore it. And so in the chat, if you will do yes, no, or thumbs up, thumbs down, how many of you have explored AI for Education, their website or any of their resources that they have? Sweet. I see some hands going up. I see some no's. So we have, awesome. So I want to share a resource with you, and
I just
Sarah
dropped it. I just dropped it.
Beautiful. So they're going to drop that link in the chat for you. But what I want to share is their prompt library. And so the link that they just put in should take you directly to this page. And so they have tons of different resources anyways. Anytime I want to gather resources or research, they do such a great job. But their prompt library is just that. They've created prompts that you can copy, paste, edit for a number of different reasons. So if you're an administrator, if you're looking for assessment, if you are looking for communication, like building a website, how to have a coaching conversation, maybe you're a mentoring teacher or a coach, they have prompts now for students, which is newer. If you are familiar with their website, they have expanded this prompt library. They have some specific for lesson planning, or if you're working at your school to help develop some professional development, SEL, EC or special education. So they have a ton of different prompts ready-made that you can take and then tailor. And so I want to highlight one that is newer that I have been playing around with, and it's this AI resistant assessments one. We know cheating, plagiarism, those things have always been an issue in education. AI ups the game a little bit. And so when I click on that particular prompt, I can go in. It tells you to use whatever your favorite chat bot is, and it gives you here a sample prompt, and it leaves places open for you to plug your information in. I love to take this, and Sarah and I were working in my office the other day, and we took our prompt and pasted it into a Google document so we could edit it and hopefully get an output that we really, really wanted. And so I will oftentimes take these and paste these in a Google Doc somewhere so that I can edit it easily. And tailor it to what I need. So it gives you this example here. It shows you maybe what it might look like filled in. And then remember that generative AI, it's not a once and done. Like the more you interact with it, the better the outputs become. And so it gives you some prompting strategies, some follow-up. So asking it to create a grading rubric. If it creates an assessment that you really like, we know that that's probably going to be a task that they have to complete as opposed to just a multiple choice assessment. So what would the rubric look like? What would a timeline or pacing, or how could I break this out over multiple days? And so I want to give you a few moments to go into the prompt library and to play around, to find a prompt. And then once you find a prompt, I would love for you to then go in and pick your favorite chatbot, whatever it is. Here lately, our team has been leaning into Google Gemini because it is one the district is exploring opening for students in the future. Copilot, ChatGPT, those are not the only three by any stretch of the imagination. There's a new one every day. But pick your favorite one and go back in and explore that library and see if you can generate some an artifact that you can take and maybe use in your classroom in the near future. And so I want to give you a few minutes to do that. Let's say, what time are we at? Let's take about 7 minutes and just explore in there. If you come across questions, you can throw them in the chat. We'll monitor that. But yeah, go in there, play around, see what you can find in there that might be useful to you. Questions about what we're doing for the next 7 minutes? Then I'm going to be quiet and give you some hands-on practice. I'll set us a timer. So as y'all find prompts that you really like, please go in and plug them into your favorite chatbot, whatever that is, and see what it gives you. And then follow up with it. Tell it that's not exactly how you like it. You want the rubric in Gen Z language. Like, play around and see what you can get when you interact.
Stephanie, which chat bot did you end up using? Since you want to save it.
Is immigration.
I did Chat GPT. Let's see, what does it say? Prompt, it says prompt library, AI for education. I don't know. Let's see, what is it? How would I find that?
Okay, what bot did you paste your prompt into? That
It
copy
says
and pasted
chat.
it?
It says chat in Chat GPT or your favorite AI chat box, and I just clicked in Chat GPT.
Okay. So in ChatGPT, you should see a little box or a little tab with a little 2 papers where you can copy that prompt over into a Google document.
Oh, goodness.
Okay, if you want to, you can share your screen at the end and we can help you find it. Just don't close that tab.
Yeah, so when you go into chat, you can see I've done lots of chats. Any of your past chats, if you're signed in, should be over here on the side. And then any of these, I can just copy and paste it into a Google Doc. Here's also, I can copy it here. If I want to share the link out, I can hit here, but oftentimes I can either just highlight it and copy it or there and then paste it into a Google Doc, a Word doc, however I want to hold on to that.
And if you're not logged in, it doesn't save your chat. So I would just copy it and put it into a Google Doc.
Yep. That's how I would hold on to all that. All right. So I think I see some people use new platforms that they never use. So some use Gemini for the first time that had only used chat before, which is awesome. Lots of us tried new things and found some cool resources, which is
amazing.
That is what we want. That is what we want to see. So if you created something that you feel could be beneficial for other teachers, please don't forget you can always go back into that Padlet and paste it in there as well, so that because sharing is caring, and we borrow to build in education quite often. And so I want to share one other resource. I know we're getting close to the end of our time, and I want to share one more resource with you and then let you play around a little bit before we come back and wrap everything back up. And so some of you already talked about, you've already shared some of the prompts in the chat and some of the things that you saw, which was awesome to see you do that as you were going through there. And I appreciate you sharing those. One of the things that I had never used, Magic School has been around for a little bit now, and it's a platform that a lot of us have heard about. But this particular tool in here, I had never played with it. Shannon, who I see creeping in the chat, Shannon, I see you. You're supposed to be resting. But Shannon introduced me to this tool, and I played around with it probably longer than I should have, because I go down a rabbit hole. So just a yes or no in the chat, or a thumbs up, thumbs down. Have any of you used the Prompt Assist tool in Magic School? We've had a mixed bag of things. We've been able to share some new tools. Awesome. So some yeses, some nos. Yeah, okay, great. And so I'm going to go through and show you a little bit what that kind of looks like. And so let me grab it. I swear this thing kills me every time. So what I'm going to do is I am going to take that prompt that you all saw this during our warm up. And I want to take that and I am going to use the AI prompt assist in Magic School. So Magic School is one of those platforms that's freemium. So a lot of their resources that are in there are free to a certain extent. There are certain aspects of the platform that are paid, but a lot of the resources in there are free, and it is great because it is a tool that was built specifically for K-12 education. And so I'm going to take that prompt that I used in our warm up, one of those 4 questions. I'm going to paste it in there, which we all said was okay. Overall, we gave it a 2.9 when we rated it on a scale from 1 to 4. 2.9 was our average. So some of us a little bit lower, some of us a little bit higher. And so I'm going to take it and put it into Prompt Assist and see what feedback or it gives me. So I'm just going to paste it in there. You could type something in there if you wanted to. I'm going to hit generate. I'm going to give it just a moment, and then you're going to see what all it gives me. So it took those two sentences that I had earlier. It gave it much more, like we talk about context, there is a whole lot of context here. It's a 45-minute class. It pulled the language of the standard. It says it wants 2 to 3 discussion questions. It says it gives details on how it wants to format. And then what I like down here is that it tells me how that prompt was improved. Like what exactly did it, was I lacking in my original prompt. There's also some tools down here, like if I want it to translate, read aloud, or any of those pieces, I can copy here, or I can just highlight and then copy and paste into whichever platform, whether that's Gemini today or ChatGPT tomorrow. I can go ahead and paste that in and then use that prompt. So this one was a new tool for me as I was working. It was one Shannon introduced me to. I've used the rubric creator and a few other things in Magic School, but this was not one of the pieces I had played around with. So we want to give you some time to go in and to play around with that prompt assist. So go in there, click the link. They're going to throw the link in the chat for you. And we want to give you about another 5 minutes to play around with that particular tool. Okay. So let me pull this back over here. I'll get us a timer started, and then you have the next 5 minutes to play around in there. Again, if you find something that you really like, a tip, a trick, make sure, or it generates an artifact for you, whichever platform, and you want to share it out, feel free to add that to our Padlet as well. All right, a little less than 2 minutes. Again, if you find some really cool stuff, you generate something really cool. One of the things, Christine, I have found is chat is pretty good with photos and things like that. But if I want really good images, I tend to use Gemini. Their image generator has really upgraded. They call it Nano Banana or Flash 2.5. It's one of my favorites for playing around with images. So chat does a good job too, but.
Sarah, what were some of the differences that you saw from the chatbot you used and then when you put it in Magic School?
Mostly I was interested in seeing how like the process came up, that it was coming up in pieces instead of as one entire product. So I'm still
Yep.
parsing through like the actual content of it.
Okay.
I think that's something I also noticed when I put in the prompt on Magic School, to where it gave like pieces versus like when I did the prompt on Chat GPT, just like it gave me 3 different lesson plans. And Magic School gave me different little prompts and then telling me like how more in detail I can go and do this. And so I just thought it was really interesting to see how Magic School responded versus Chat GPT that's like, here, I'm gonna give you all this, and then is there something else you want me to do?
Yeah, and so this is just one
One.
piece or one tool within Magic School that's focused on the prompting piece. So as like I even think from a teacher standpoint, if I taught middle school, and so if I was doing something with students and I wanted them to develop prompts, this would be a really great tool to help students develop their prompting skills, because I think that's a gap for them, that they're not getting the output that they want because the input, what they're putting in, isn't as detailed, or they're not giving it enough context. And so this is one piece of Magic School that can help adults, students, all of us to develop that prompting skill, because I do think it is a skill. And I think the more you do it, the more innately it becomes to add some of those contextual details as you're going through. Shannon, I know you're on here. I was creeping. Anything you want to add? Because this was your baby. This was one of the things that you shared.
This is Sandy, and I'm just going to say that I have been using this Magic School prompting to hone in my prompts and make them better. And then I take that output from this Magic School prompt and then put it in either in one of the other resources in Magic School, one of the teacher tools, or posted in Gemini or in Copilot. So I really use the Magic School prompt library to help beef up my prompt.
Yeah. And so what I will say is that we talk about AI literacy. And we talk about, oftentimes when we talk about Gen AI, we think about platforms first, and that is a piece of it. And that's what our focus has been today, is around prompting, because your output is only going to be as good as your input. And so being able to effectively use those AI tools is really important to overall AI literacy. But AI literacy isn't just that piece. I think that's what we oftentimes focus on, but it's a much bigger piece of the puzzle, so to say. And so when we think about AI literacy, this is one of the definitions we really lean into. It's one that DPI uses. It's from Digital Promise. It talks about developing those skills to use, right? but it also talks about it's enabling humans. We have to critically understand how AI works, that it is training off a set of data. And we know that everything on the internet is not true or factual. And so being able to understand how that works, and then being able to evaluate it on the back end. So using it is just one small piece of the puzzle. It's that human element, right? And then also thinking about today, we introduced the term PII, personally identifiable information. So how do you safely use generative AI? One of the things, we were in a webinar with Vera Cabero earlier. Well, it's probably been, I lose all sense of time. It's probably been about a month and a half, but she introduced the idea of agentic browsers and AI being built into browsers, and how that could possibly, depending on what you use it for or what kind of information you put in, could be problematic because you're giving it lots and lots of personally identifiable information. And then there's also the ethical component too. And so when we think about AI literacy, it's not just how to develop a really good prompt. It's all those other things. It's once I develop a prompt and I put it into a platform, that then I evaluate that input. And so one of the things we always remind anybody that we're working with is our 80-20 rule. And so AI will do a lot of things for you. It'll draft a lesson plan. It'll help create scenarios for PD, or if I'm doing like a breakout, or it can give students feedback and things like that. And it will do a lot of the heavy lifting, but we have an obligation as the teacher in that classroom, or the human in the process, to then evaluate. And so making sure that there are no hallucinations, that the information's correct, that if it generates a lesson plan, that it really is something our students are going to be engaged in and that meets their needs. And so we talk about the 80-20 rule a whole lot when we think about that human element in AI. And so last but not least, we're getting close to the end of our time. I promise I will be done at 5 o'clock. If you are new to this, we ask that you just start small. Think about how you can use generative AI. Some of you got lots of good ideas today. Stay curious. There are always new articles, new platforms. Even Shannon was showing me earlier today, or earlier this week, how Gemini and the slides creation within Gemini and how good it is. Like the formatting, a lot of other platforms will generate slides, but the formatting was spot on. Like I can take it and use it. So just stay curious, continue to learn and engage, and then really think about how you use it both in your professional and personal lives, and then how you're going to evaluate that output, how you're going to use it to meet student needs. And so our next session, we know December is hectic. It is crazy. And so we're not doing a session in December, but we will be back in January. So Tuesday, January 13th. And so we're really starting to get into the ethical considerations of AI. And so really we're going to talk a little bit more about data privacy, and then start to dive into the bias piece too, because if you talk about generative AI and you don't acknowledge that there might be bias in the information, again, it goes back to that literacy, being able to critically evaluate. And so that will be our next topic. You can see the others there as well. All of those are live in Kickup. And just a small plug, we are also going to roll out during second semester some asynchronous professional development that is specific to grade bands. So there'll be some K2, a 3-5, 6-8, and a 9-12 band, and there will be more information coming out about that in the coming weeks. So just if you see something in keeping you informed, or principals or IFs, MCLs, APs share some things, just know we're trying to do some things. And so if you have questions, feel free, you can throw those in the chat. We've tried to monitor those as we've gone through. But I would like to say thank you so much for joining us today. You could have been anywhere this afternoon, but joining us, we really do appreciate it. And Sarah and Sandy, thumbs up. All of our attendance has been confirmed. All right.
Mhm.
So you should be good to go. Sandy and Sarah went through as you were participating and confirmed all your attendance. So that's why some of us, we ask about last names and stuff, just so we make sure we had the right person. So thank you all. We appreciate you. Please go into Kick Up and give us feedback. We changed today's based on the last group's feedback. So please give us feedback. We do really look at that. So, and we appreciate you.
Okay, quick question. I'm sorry.
Mhm.
I kept getting kicked off at the beginning. So was my attendance confirmed?
Yes.
Sandy
Okay,
says she got you.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome.
Okay,
Awesome.
I don't see any way to save what I created when I
Okay.
go to Chat GPT.
Okay, so if you're not logged in, you're going to have to highlight the context of the response that you got back from your prompt. Highlight that.
Okay.
Keyboard shortcut Control C to copy it, and then open up a Google Doc and do Control V on your keyboard to paste it.
All right. All right. I'm slow. All
No,
right. So
it's okay.
so Control C. I got it highlighted. So
Beautiful.
Control C.
Copies it,
Okay. Control
and then open up
C.
a new window and open up a Google Doc.
Open up a window. Open up Google Doc.
Yeah. I'm trying to pull mine up so I can show you what that would look like. It's taking me a minute. My
I
computer's
closed all
being-
my windows,
I know mine's being slow.
and I'm
So-
having trouble getting back in. That's why.
So
I tell
here,
you
let
what,
me
yeah,
show you.
Yeah,
here.
just show me. Just show me.
Yeah. So here's my prompt I put in to, this is a chat. I was looking for a SMART goal. And so this is the output that it gave me. So if I wanted to take this and use it, I could copy this. I'm going to highlight it. I'm
I
going
can't see
to,
what you're doing.
You got to share your
reason.
screen,
oh
Ashley.
yeah, I stopped sharing. I'm sorry. That's my fault. My fault. My bad. My bad. I did stop sharing. Come on. All right. Can you see my screen now? Sandy, y'all good?
Yes.
Yes.
So